That means you have no map. No one in your family can tell you how to hold this, how to pass it on, how to make sure it outlasts you. The wealth stops at one generation unless you build the architecture to carry it forward, and nobody taught you architecture. You are building the blueprint and living in the building at the same time. You think about your children. You want to give them security. You do not want to give them the version of security that becomes its own kind of prison, the kind that removes all friction, all hunger, all understanding of what things cost. You want them to have the foundation without losing the fire. You do not know how to do that yet. You are figuring it out in real time the way you figured out everything. Here is what nobody tells you about being the first. You do not just break the ceiling for yourself. You remove it entirely for everyone who comes after you. They will never know it was there. They will look up and see open sky and assume that is just what sky looks like, unlimited, obvious, available. They will not know about the years you stared at the underside of something most people in your family never thought to question. They will not know about the 3 a.m. moments. The failed attempts. The specific loneliness of a milestone with no reference point. The dinner conversations where you could not explain what you were carrying. They will not know. And that is exactly right. That is the whole point. You did not do this for a trophy. You did not do this for recognition or validation or the right to say I told you so. You did this so the next one does not have to start where you started. That is what generational wealth actually is. It is not a number. It is a different starting line. You built it, out of nothing, out of a coffee can and a tight jaw and a family that loved you inside the only walls they knew how to build. You took the invisible ceiling and made it the floor. The coffee can is gone. In its place. Accounts with numbers your grandmother could not have imagined, structures your father never knew existed, options your mother was never supposed to have. The view from here is nothing like you imagined. It is heavier. Quieter. More real. And you would not trade it for any version of easier. Because you did not just change your life. You changed the starting point of every life that comes after yours. And that specific, irreversible, permanent thing, is what the grind was always for. Nobody in your family has ever had $1 million. Not your parents. Not your grandparents. Not anyone whose name you know. And you are about to be the first. This is exactly how it happens, every decision, every number, every year, from the coffee can above the refrigerator to the account with 7 figures attached to your name. Your grandmother kept cash in a coffee can. Red lid. Maxwell House. Pushed to the back of the cabinet above the refrigerator. Not because she did not trust banks. She just did not trust herself to not spend it if it lived somewhere she could not see it. Emergency money. Always there. Never growing. Never moving. Just sitting in the dark waiting for something bad to happen. That image is your entire financial education. Nobody sat you down and said we are poor. Nobody handed you a book explaining why money would always feel like a source of stress rather than a tool. It was quieter than that. It was the way your mother's jaw tightened when the car made a noise it did not make yesterday. The way your father changed the subject when someone mentioned retirement. The way every conversation about the future eventually hit a wall, invisible, made of nothing but habit and history and the unspoken belief that people like you do not end up with more than people like you started with. You absorbed it the way children absorb everything, completely, without knowing you were doing it. You learned not to ask for things. Not because your parents were cruel. Because the look on their face when you asked was worse than not having the thing. That look taught you more than any classroom ever did. It taught you that wanting more was dangerous. That ambition was something other people had. That the correct posture for someone in your position was gratitude for what you had, not hunger for what you did not. And for a long time you believed that. The ceiling was invisible because nobody ever pointed at it. Nobody had to. You just kept growing until you it, and then you stopped, because that is what everyone around you had done. But something was wrong. You could feel it before you could name it. A low-grade static in your chest that would not go away. A sense that the map you had been handed did not match the terrain you were standing on. And then one day something cracked. You are somewhere unremarkable. A break room. A bus. Your childhood bedroom at midnight with a laptop screen lighting your face. And you read something, or see something, or meet someone, and a single thought enters your mind with the quiet force of a crowbar. These people did not start with more than me. They just decided the ceiling was not real. That thought is either the best thing that ever happens to you or the beginning of a very long, very difficult decade. Probably both. Here is what nobody tells you about the moment you decide to opt out of the script you were handed. It does not feel like empowerment. It does not feel like a montage. It feels like vertigo. Like you stepped off a ledge and you do not know yet if there is ground below you or just more air. You start reading. Obsessively. Quietly. You do not tell anyone because you already know how it lands. Your circle has a very efficient immune system, it identifies ambition as a foreign body and attacks. So you stay quiet. You read at night. You watch videos in headphones. You fill a notebook with ideas that feel simultaneously obvious and impossible. You try your first thing. Maybe it fails in a week. Maybe it limps along for 6 months before dying quietly. It does not matter. What matters is you tried, which means you have already separated yourself from 90% of the people who will spend their entire lives saying I should have, and I almost did, and I had this idea once. But separation has a price. You have not paid it yet. The invoice is coming. Now let us talk about the actual financial decisions that happen in this stage, because this is where most first-generation wealth builders make mistakes that cost them years. You have your first real income. Maybe it is $38,000 a year. Maybe it is $52,000. The number matters less than what you do with the margin above your true cost of living. The single most important financial move you can make at this stage is this: before you invest, before you start a business, before anything else, you build a 3-month emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. Not in a coffee can. Not in your checking account where it blends into spending money. A separate account, a different bank if you need the psychological distance, labeled with one word: untouchable. For someone spending $2,000 a month, your target is $6,000. At $500 a month of disciplined saving, that is 12 months. That wall is what allows you to take the risks that build wealth without one bad month destroying everything you have built. The people who try to skip this step and go straight to investing or building a business while living with zero financial cushion, most of them quit when the first real setback hits. Not because they lacked ability. Because they had no runway. Your grandmother's coffee can was the instinct in the wrong form. The instinct, keep something back, protect yourself, was exactly right. The vehicle was wrong. A high-yield savings account earning 4.5% APY is the coffee can, built correctly. 2 years in. Maybe 3. Your bank account does not reflect the hours you have put in. This is the part of the story that gets skipped in every highlight reel, every how I made my first million video, every success post from someone who figured it out and now sells courses about figuring it out. They skip this part because this part is ugly and slow and does not perform well online. This part is you, tired in a way that sleep does not fix, doing something for the 100th time that still is not working, while everyone around you has a normal life that is starting to look, if not glamorous, at least restful. Your friends stop inviting you out. Not maliciously. They just stopped expecting you to say yes, and then they stopped asking. Your family starts asking questions with an edge in them. When is this going to turn into something real? Not because they want you to fail. Because they are scared for you. And scared people get impatient. You take a loss. Not a small one. Maybe you put months of savings into something and it does not work and you have to sit with that number, that specific, humiliating number, and figure out what it means about you. You have a moment. One specific 3 in the morning moment where the whole project seems not just difficult but genuinely stupid. Where the voice that sounds exactly like every person who ever doubted you gets very loud and very reasonable. It says, nobody from where you are from has done this. That is not a coincidence. That is data. You sit with that for a while. Then you get up. Not because you are made of something special. Not because you have a mindset other people lack. You get up because the alternative is going back, and you have spent enough time at the starting line to know you cannot live there. The version of you that accepts the ceiling does not exist anymore. You burned the floor on that side. So you keep going. Here is what the grind years must look like financially, because discipline without a system is just suffering. You have the emergency fund. Now every additional dollar beyond your living expenses splits into 3 buckets automatically on payday. The first bucket is your Roth IRA. You contribute the maximum allowed, $7,000 a year as of 2024. You invest it entirely in a low-cost total market index fund with an expense ratio below 0.1%. You do not touch this money. You do not watch it daily. You let it run. The second bucket is a taxable brokerage account, same index fund, same hands-off approach. Whatever you can put here beyond the Roth maximum goes here. The third bucket is your opportunity fund, the capital you are building to invest in yourself, your skill development, your business, the thing that will eventually generate income beyond your salary. The split between buckets 2 and 3 depends on your path. If you are building a business, bucket 3 gets more. If you are on a career track, bucket 2 gets more. But the Roth IRA is non-negotiable regardless. Here is why that matters at this exact stage. If you are 24 and you invest $7,000 this year in a Roth IRA and never touch it, at a 7% real return, that single contribution becomes $106,000 by the time you are 65. Every year you wait to make that contribution is a year of that compounding gone forever. You cannot go back and make a Roth IRA contribution for a year that has passed. The window closes every December 31st. This is not abstract. This is the most time-sensitive financial decision of your 20s. Fund it first. Every year. Before you spend anything that is not a survival necessity. The first sign arrives on an ordinary Tuesday. It is not the million. It is not even close to the million. But it is real and it is yours, and nothing that came before it prepared you for how it would feel. Maybe it is the first month your side income matches your rent. Maybe it is a number in your investment account that 2 years ago would have seemed like a typo. Whatever it is, it arrives on an ordinary Tuesday and you stare at it longer than makes sense. Then you close the laptop and go to bed, because there is no one to call. That is the thing about the first real win when you have been doing this alone. The person you most want to tell is someone who would not understand what the number means. Not because they are unintelligent. Because they do not have the context. They have not been inside the days that produce this. So you sit with it quietly. You let it be real. You go to sleep. What changes? You believe for the first time, in a way that is not just performance, that the ceiling is breakable. Before you knew it intellectually. Now you know it in your body. That is the difference between reading about altitude and actually breathing thin air. You reinvest everything. You stay uncomfortable on purpose, because comfort is where momentum goes to die. The first win is proof. It is not arrival. It is confirmation that the direction is right. Keep going. Now your income is growing and the financial decisions get more complex. This is where first-generation wealth builders most often make the mistake that costs them a decade: lifestyle inflation. Your income doubled. Your life expenses doubled with it. New apartment, new car, new version of yourself that costs twice as much to maintain monthly. This feels earned. It feels like the point. It is the trap. Here is the rule that separates people who build lasting wealth from people who earn a lot and end up with nothing to show for it. Every time your income increases, you direct a minimum of 50% of the increase directly into investments before it touches your lifestyle. Your salary goes from $60,000 to $85,000, that is $25,000 more annually, $2,083 more per month. At least $1,041 of that goes straight to your brokerage account or business capital before you adjust a single lifestyle expense. This is not deprivation. You still get to enjoy the raise. You just split it, half to future you, half to present you. This rule, applied consistently across every raise and every income jump for the next decade, is the mechanical engine underneath the million. It is not complicated. It is not glamorous. It is the single habit that compounds into the number that changes your family's history. The number becomes real on a Wednesday. Not a dramatic Wednesday. Not a Wednesday with a soundtrack. You are sitting somewhere ordinary, your kitchen table, a desk you finally let yourself buy because you earned a real desk, and you run the numbers the way you have run them 100 times before. And this time they clear. 7 figures. The first time that number applies to you. To your name. To the account with your social security number attached to it. You check it twice. You close it. You open it again. You thought this moment would feel like a finish line. Like the specific release of a breath you have been holding for years. You thought there would be some physical signal from your nervous system that said, "This is the one." You did it. Instead it is quiet. That is the part nobody warns you about. The profound, disorienting quiet of crossing a threshold that nobody in your bloodline has ever said. There is no reference for this in your family's vocabulary. Your parents do not have a word for what you just became. The emotional language for this milestone does not exist in the house you grew up in. You want to call your mother. You dial. You talk for 20 minutes. You do not mention the number. Not because you are hiding it. Because you do not know how to say it without it sounding like something it is not. So you say you are doing well. She says that is good. She says eat something real. You hang up and sit in the quiet for a long time. Here is what the money does immediately, and this is the part most financial content skips entirely. It solves the problems you have had for years and reveals an entirely new set of problems you did not know existed. You have decisions to make that require knowledge you do not have yet. Tax structures. Asset protection. Investment vehicles for preserving and growing wealth rather than accumulating it. You grew up in a house with a coffee can above the refrigerator. Nobody left you a manual for this stage. So here is the manual. At 7 figures your first move is to find a fee-only fiduciary financial planner, someone who charges a flat fee for their time and is legally required to act in your interest rather than earning commissions for selling you products. Budget $2,000 to $5,000 a year for this relationship. It will return multiples of that cost in tax savings alone. Your second move is to understand the difference between assets that produce income and assets that simply appreciate. $1 million sitting in an index fund at 7% real return generates $70,000 a year in growth. That is the number working without you. $1 million spent on a depreciating lifestyle generates nothing and declines. The wealthy stay wealthy by accumulating income-producing assets and protecting them from tax erosion and inflation. Your third move, and this one is emotional, not financial, is to decide how you will use this to change the trajectory of the people behind you. Not by handing money to people who have not built the framework to hold it. But by funding the next generation's Roth IRAs. By paying for the education that builds earning capacity rather than the status purchase that signals it. By having the money conversation openly with your children that nobody in your family ever had with you. Generational wealth is not a number. It is a different starting line. You build the starting line by building the financial literacy in the people who will stand on it. You go home for the holidays. Same house. Same smell, something that has always been in the walls. Same too loud television. Same table with a folded napkin under one uneven leg. Same everything. And yet there is a gap now. Not between you and the people in this house, you love them with the same intensity you always have, maybe more, because distance clarifies things. The gap is between the life you left and the life you are living. You pay for dinner. You say it is nothing. They say you did not have to. You say you wanted to. There is a micro-silence after that exchange that lasts exactly long enough to be uncomfortable and then everyone moves on. But it happened. You start losing people who are not leaving. No confrontation. No falling out. Just a gradual drift, like two boats that were once tied together and someone has been quietly, incrementally letting out the rope. Old friends treat you differently. Some become quieter around you in a way that feels like self-consciousness. Some become louder, testing, probing, looking for the version of you that would prove you have not changed. And when they cannot find him they do not know what to do with the one they found instead. And then there is the guilt. Not the abstract guilt of having more. Something more specific and harder to shake. The guilt of watching your mother still worry about money when you could write a check that would end that worry forever, and not knowing how to do it without changing something irreversible between you. The guilt of growing up. The guilt of surviving something that was not supposed to be survived. You carry it like extra weight. You get used to it. You do not put it down. There is a version of this story where making it feels like freedom. And it does, genuinely. You can say yes to things you spent years saying no to. You can go to sleep without the background radiation of financial dread that hummed beneath everything for so long you stopped noticing it until it went quiet. You can help people. Really help them. Not with advice and intention but with actual resources, which is the only kind of help that changes things. You can give your children a start that is fundamentally different from one you were given. That specific thing is worth every year of the grind. Every loss. Every 3 in the morning moment. Every sacrifice. That part is real. But there is a weight that comes with it that freedom does not cancel out. You are the first.